anything about apart from what I'm doing in this present moment, and that's how it should be.
Mhm. And
I
how
love
many
that.
flats have you got now?
Mm, yeah. How about you, Jen? Have you looked at any more flats?
Yeah, when I haven't today, I've just kind of like too tired to. I am so tired.
Mm.
So I just kind
Yeah.
of like said, I'm going to have today and tomorrow off. It's bank holiday tomorrow. So, I mean, not tomorrow, on Monday. So there's
Okay.
not much you can do anyway. So
No.
I'm just going to have a couple of days. And then they've extended it until Thursday. So it's given me a few more days.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So
fantastic.
yeah. Mhm.
Oh,
So,
so are you ready for your podcast, Lucas?
I think so. Let's go. Okay, I'm good.
yeah. We're going to have a chat. We're just going to have a normal little chat together before Lucas goes into it. And I
Yeah.
think if I can, once we're ready, and we can cut what we don't want again, but if I just open it up with just something, an intro, first of all, which I've just written,
Yeah.
and then we
Yeah,
can like just have a little chat beforehand. Welcome to Reflective Gap, the space. Oh, sorry. Blah, blah, blah. Welcome to Reflective Gap podcast, the space once known as Wisdom Builders. Here we pause together in the gap between life's challenges and life's lessons. This is a place for honest stories, deep reflections, and voices that rise from pain into purpose. Each episode invites you to step back, breathe, and explore the wisdom we gather from lived experience. Wisdom that heals, restores, and builds stronger connections. I'm Jenny, and I believe that in the stillness of reflection, we find the courage to grow, to heal, and to build bridges of understanding. So let's step into the gap together and discover what's waiting to be heard.
I love that. I think you should be the official intro person from now on.
It's good. It's nice.
Yeah.
It was very good.
Uh,
It was fantastic.
okay.
So I'm doing my podcast today.
Mm.
Um, and um, it's really interesting because there's so many elements to my story, to my life, that I was trying to figure and decide how I wanted to approach it. Um, and then when we look at what we're also offering with regards to things like our workshops and different things of those sorts, um, it really is quite open because I can speak to so many different things. I can speak to childhood abuse and trauma. I can speak to challenges in schooling. Um, I can speak to mental health. I can speak to uh, abusive and coercive experiences in the workplace. Experiences like the labor exploitation I faced in the construction industry. Um, there's just so many different things. Um, I think the easiest way for me to go into my podcast is to just do a little brief intro about who I am and what it is that's led me to being able to talk about these different things. So I'm 42 years old. As I mentioned just a few minutes earlier, I lived in a very abusive household as a child. Dealt with a lot of different forms of trauma and abuse. Um, that also extended into things like schooling, and then it went into workplaces, friendships, relationships, all that kind of stuff. And things didn't really turn around for me until I was probably about 38, 37. Yeah, 37, 38, somewhere in there. But throughout the course of my journey, um, my experiences included diagnosis of PTSD, massive depression, borderline personality disorder, losing a child, being homeless, and then dealing with a whole wide range of different types of problems in almost every aspect of society, mainly because of various challenges that exist within the system itself. Um, so it really comes down to, I think, the easiest way of doing this is to explore different elements of my experience. And I would love to open it up so that we can have like an interactive chat. I can answer questions you guys might have, and things of those sorts. Um, Now, with regards to like the different abuses and stuff I had at home, they started from my memory as early as about the age of 5, and they were like a variety of like physical, verbal, emotional, psychological, the whole 9 yards. Um, but borderline personality disorder is very unique because there's almost no understanding of it, and even especially 20 years ago or 25 years ago when I first was going really through it, there was no understanding at all. And even more recently, going through different things like therapy or seeing psychologists or speaking with professionals to get a better understanding of what exactly is going on. What does it mean according to um, the experts, so to speak? Um, 9 times out of 10, it felt like all the experts were just doing a guessing game, trying to figure out, do we know, do we not know? We read textbooks and we did all these different things. And through that process of having diagnoses and being told what I'm supposed to do to be normal, per se, it actually made the journey that much more difficult because my identity revolved around being who I was told I was supposed to be instead of trying to discover for myself who I really want to be. Um, but the greatest challenge that happened is that I was fractured mentally because at home I was told I had to be one way. At school I was told you have to be no, you can't do that. You have to be this way. And then seeing a psychiatrist or a therapist, I was told no, you can't do either of those. You have to be like this. And the same thing went on with friends, into high school, into work, all those different kinds of things. And so it was the greatest part of my journey for probably about 15 or 20 years was trying to figure out how I can pivot and appease individuals around me in a way of staying safe. Because of the people that were around me, especially employers or teachers or parents, things of those sorts. If I wasn't doing what they wanted, um, it was potentially very dangerous for me because of the abuse, um, the intimidation, the threats, all those kinds of things. And in the construction industry, for anybody who doesn't know it, it's completely so much more because there's a lot of individuals with aggression challenges, or with they don't know how to do something, so they become violent, or they become angry, and all these kinds of things. Unfortunately, being in the construction industry for close to 20 years, it resulted in my back breaking. And so what happened is that I was finally at the end of a journey where I spent so much time trying to make everyone else happy. And now, because I was broken, I was discarded, forgotten, all these different things. And then, it was isolating and very challenging. The sad part of this all is that receiving supports and receiving help didn't actually happen until I was hospitalized for trying to end my own life. Once that happened, then all of a sudden, the reactions were like, well, wait, hold on a second. If things were wrong, why didn't you say anything? Well, I did. I spent 30 years saying things. And I was told that, you're being ungrateful, or you're just attention seeking, or you're doing this, or you're doing that. I told you what you have to do, so just do it. Once I went into the hospital, I was in the psychiatric ward for almost 2 months. I started to connect with other individuals in that ward. And we connected on a level that I did not know exists between human beings. There was no bias, there was no judgment, there was no threatening, there was no nothing, there was no looking at each other through the lens of what can I get out of this person, or what usefulness does this person have for me. We just spoke. And by doing that, for the first time, many of us felt seen, heard, valued. And that's ultimately when the healing journey really began for me. Something else happened also after I was discharged from the hospital, because part of my discharge is I had to see a therapist to make sure that I was not at risk of further self-harm and things of those sorts. And because of my experiences from childhood up until my mid-30s, where clinicians, hospitals, really anybody and everybody didn't actually listen to what I was saying and just told me what I had to do. I felt compelled to just be blatantly open and honest with my therapist. And I told her that and said, I was going to be very open and honest with you. And she said, well, okay, that's what I'm hoping for. And I said, great. So I think therapists are full of it. And the look on her face, it's actually quite funny when you have someone who sits there and says, don't worry, I've heard it all. And then you say something and the pen drops. And they're like, oh, well, okay. So now we're being real. And when I said this to my therapist asked me, well, why do you say that? And I say, well, because no matter what I say, you're just going to flip through your book and say, okay, well, that's page 2. So we're just going to diagnose you and give you a pill. And then the next day we'll talk about something else and you'll flip through your book and say, okay, well, that's page 10. So we're going to diagnose you with something else and give you another pill and see how it goes. And it'll work or it won't work. You might have side effects. You might get hurt along the way. But this is how the process works. I said, so again, like I said, you're full of it. And so she asked me, what do I want to do? I said, well, um, I want to decide for myself. She kind of looked at me and said, well, how are you going to do that? I said, well, I have about 30 years of experience dealing with therapists, psychologists, and everything else. And I started um, just about word for word explaining to her what diagnoses I had, what they mean in the textbook, how they're described in the textbook, all these different things. And she said, oh, so you already know. And I said, yeah, but nothing's come of it. So she said, so what do you want to do? And I said, well, how about this? We'll talk. You tell me what you think, and then I'll research it in between now and our next appointment. And when we connect, we'll talk about it. And I'll let you know which parts of your little textbook I think are complete nonsense and which parts actually align with me. And the most amazing thing happened when I started discovering for myself what being diagnosed with borderline personality means to me, not according to some psychologist who observed people and came up with a theory based on what best fits my understanding of it. I was able to form my own thoughts and opinions on that. And as those thoughts and opinions evolved, I began to develop my own theories, my own thesis. And I began working very closely with a wide variety of individuals all over the world, really, that are also survivors of trauma, different experiences, and things of those sorts. And essentially, what I shared with them is that my understanding is that a mental health disorder is not about there being some genetic or some chemical imbalance that creates the issue. There are some things where there can be, but it's about the degrees and levels of emotional pain that an individual is enduring. And as an individual is enduring those levels of emotional pain, their body and their nervous system and their mind has one job: to try to get that individual away from pain whatever way it possibly can. Which is the survival response. And so, for instance, in my case, as mentioned, I had a mother who was very abusive, physically, verbally, in almost every way. And I spent probably the first 20 years of my life being told that I'm not allowed to dishonor my mother. So no matter what she does, no matter how much it hurts, no matter how much pain or suffering it causes, she knows what's best for me. And if I'm not accepting that, then I'm being an ungrateful child, or I'm attention seeking, or things of those sorts. To put it into perspective, I've been hospitalized non-psychologically 3 times by the time I turned 18, largely due to the abuse I dealt with from her. I began having suicidal ideations at the age of 10. I began smoking at the age of 12, and the list goes on and on and on. Looking at how this evolves, once I was able to discover for myself what it means to me that I have depression, or what it means to me that I have borderline personality disorder, or what it means to me that I have PTSD, I was able to start unraveling a lot of the damage that had been done over many decades in the name of uh, doing what's best for me from almost every aspect of society. Now, what comes up when we discuss these kinds of things is what role does the individual have in their own story? What roles do others have? And not only what roles do others have, but how are those roles affected? So when I was in the hospital, there were situations where, once again, I'd be told that the medical staff, the nurses, the doctors, whoever else was there, will be doing everything in their power to help me. Now, I was told every morning that my blood pressure was low and that I needed to drink lots of water. Yet, whenever I went to a nurse to ask for water, I was told, well, you have to wait till the next mealtime. It's going to be 2 hours, so just whatever, don't worry. At 12 o'clock, you'll get your water, and that's it. And then the next day, the doctor would say, well, you're not drinking enough water. And there was an inherent fear of telling that doctor that the nurse wasn't giving me water, because I had observed the nurses and how they dealt with the other patients on the ward. One lady was very hungry, and so she would try to go to the cart that had all the meals after everybody had eaten and try to take whatever wasn't eaten so she could eat it, and they would refuse her, to the point where one of the nurses grabbed her, twisted her arm behind her back until she screamed in pain, and then went on her way. So these kinds of situations are what happen. And, sorry, that just hit me. When the nurses or the doctors or the teachers or the parents or the police officers or anybody that's in power of authority have the ability to punish individuals for speaking their opinion or speaking the truth or talking about what's happening, it creates a dynamic where nobody wants to talk about it. because nobody wants to be in a situation where they're unsafe. Now, as somebody who is also an employee, I know that there are similar challenges between employees and their employers. So employees will be threatened, employees will be told, you have to make this work no matter how. We don't want excuses. And if you don't, you're going to lose your job, or when it comes time to be considered for a promotion or a raise, we're just not going to let you go in the running for it. Or there's a whole slew of different things. And this is things that I've personally witnessed in corporate America settings, in the construction industry, especially in the construction industry, in healthcare settings, um, in education settings. And I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that this kind of thing happens in every industry. So when we look at a situation where somebody is responsible for somebody else, and we create the narrative or the appearance of a cult, of a culture where employees have rights, employees have protections, this and that, and clients have rights and protections and things of those sorts. There's a level of trust that is put on individuals. When the individuals move forward in those cultures, in those elements, and in those settings in line with the culture's values and ethics that they now believe in, and then they are met with the opposite from the person that's responsible for their care, it creates a very strong moral injury, meaning that you know I'm being expected to behave in a specific way, act in a specific way, and perform in a specific way. And there's an agreement that this is going to be across the entire company, organization, platform, whatever you want to call it, regardless of an individual's position, ranking, or any other category. And then when that doesn't happen, all of a sudden the question comes up of why should I bother when the people that are supposed to be modeling this for me and are supposed to be there to protect me aren't doing it themselves? Now, this is where a lot of challenges come into play, because I've had, sorry, I've had multiple situations where I've reached out to employment protection agencies, police services, healthcare agencies, and explained what I'm experiencing and what's happening to me. Um, as a child, as I said earlier, I was labeled as attention seeking, ungrateful. In high school, I was labeled as being too sensitive, not toughening up. And then as an adult, when it got to a point where the abuses I was experiencing at work were impacting both my physical and psychological health, I was being told that my testimonies aren't in good faith, um, or I was being told that, you know, if you're not happy, just get a different job. And I did some digging because I wanted to understand exactly how far this goes. And I realized that there are pages and pages upon volumes of case studies that exist, where individuals are experiencing the exact same thing that I'm describing right now. And nothing's being done about it. So when we look at improving the quality of mental health, when we look at improving outcomes for children, adolescents, preteens, teens, adults, there's quite a bit to talk about, quite a bit that has to be explored. And through the workshops that I deliver, that's what I will be discussing, based on age group, based on industry, based upon what things are causing the harms and what things are contributing to um, continued worsening experiences of harm. And then on the other side of it, now that I've have close to 6 years of recovery under my belt, it's also tying that in to understand what does recovery look like, what things need to be incorporated, what changes have to be made, and rather than working in a reactive response, about how to deal with situations when they blow up into a full-blown crisis. What kind of preventative maintenance things can be done to make sure that it never gets to that point? Yeah, that's. I think that sums it up in a nutshell, kind of thing. So I wanted to ask you guys what questions you might have, because it's very hard. There's so much for me to be able to talk about that it's very hard for me to pick something to speak about without questions about what it is that you would like to know, or things of those sorts.
Yes, Lucas, your journey does filter in to many different areas, subcategories. It's a large area you cover, and it's a very uh, emotional journey you've been through. You certainly experienced some very unpleasant situations throughout your life, but you're also in a position now, I believe, to look back and recognize what you have learned from those
Mm.
experiences. Of course, had you had a choice, you would probably have preferred not to have experienced
Oh,
what you did. But on the plus side, I know that sounds a bit paradoxically, but now you have almost become um, a kind of expert in your field. You're now in a position where you can tell about your experiences and you can elaborate on that when you speak to others who are seeking hope and recovery. So your journey hasn't been wasted. Your life hasn't been wasted with all those terrible things you've experienced. I would say your life has been enriched by them because you are now where you are in a position where you can help others. A bit like my own journey that I talked about the other day. It's very easy for me to look back and think, oh, I wasted my entire life with OCD and depression and low self-esteem and thoughts about ending my own life. I've wasted all those years. But then when I stand and ponder over it, like yourself, I think we are both in that same position or similar position at least, where we can say, yeah, we've been through that. But because of that, we are now stronger and we're able to help others,
mm.
trying to turn into something positive at the end, which you have done. So that's brilliant. I got a couple of questions. I just made some notes whilst I listened to you. You were born in Germany, I know that. Is that
I would.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you move away from Germany? Just out of interest?
Um, I came to Canada when I was 4. Um,
Okay, so very young.
so my parents were trying to escape. So my parents were actually Polish. They grew up in communist Poland, and so they were
Wondering
trying
because
to
of your surname sound. I was wondering, is that Polish?
yes,
Yeah,
and so they were
okay.
trying to escape the challenges that were happening over there. And coming to Canada was the final step in a way of escaping communism,
Yeah.
oppression, all those different things. So,
Mm.
yeah.
When you look back at what happened to you during your childhood years, do you feel, just trying to get the core of any potential emotions you feel if you are looking back, when you're looking back, do you blame? Is there blame within you looking back at was it your mother in particular that was so harsh to you, or was there a father figure as well?
At home, it was my mother, yes. And my father left my mother when I was young, maybe about 7, because he just couldn't deal with her abuse anymore.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of instances of that. And in many ways, having him, because I had visitation rates with him, shared custody kind of thing. Um, in many ways, that's partially what saved me in my childhood because I had somewhere to escape to away from her. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
and unfortunately, for him, he saw what was happening to me. But no matter who he reached out to or who he spoke to, it was always at that time, especially in the 90s, um, that no matter what, the father was always wrong, the mother was always right. And so, regardless of what happened, uh, I was forced to be with her, regardless of
Okay.
what I
Yes.
said, what I wrote, all those kinds of things. Um, there's a few parts to your question, though. For instance, going back 20 years, I wouldn't have been able to even speak about this because of how profound have how profound of an impact it had on me. And I think it's a huge testament to the recovery journey is reaching a point where I was able to look back on my experiences to pull wisdom and knowledge from it without it sending me on an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
The best way I can describe it is that it'd be kind of like watching a movie. And if you're impacted by it, it impacts you emotionally and it has lots of different effects on you. But when you're able to watch that movie and look at it and see what's happening, experience it without those emotional uh, triggers or overwhelms or things of those sorts, that's really the point that I knew I had begun to heal and recover. Um, and then being able to pull from those experiences and the knowledge to be able to offer support, insight, and I
You,
don't want to say advice, but support and insight to others on how they can be supported through their own journeys.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to visualize how it must have been for you when you were a child, but also you explaining how your mother was behaving. That also tells me that she must have had some issues herself because it's not a normal behavior being abusive towards your own child. So did she have any psychological issues that you are aware of?
That I'm aware of, no. Well, I suspect, and I've suspected for a very long time. And as I've gotten older and as I've gone through my own journey, I've come across information about her life before I was born and the things that she went through in communist era Poland and all those kinds of things and how it impacted her and all those things.
Um,
It's challenging because um, individuals told me most of my life that um, in many ways she's not responsible for what she does because um, there has to be some kind of sickness or there has to be some kind of illness or something of why she behaves this way. And in many ways, that led to further confusion for me because I both loved and hated her at the same time. Um, and it wasn't until a therapy I had where I was told that I have a choice, that I can choose whether or not I want this person to be in my life. I can choose whether or not I want to um, allow this person to still have an impact on me. And so that was also a very large part of my recovery journey.
Are you in touch with your mother still? Is she around still, your mother?
Oh, she's around,
Yeah.
but I haven't talked to her in years, and I don't know if I would at this point.
No, and
because
I don't think you need to anyway. I think it's also a part, or I know it's part of one's healing journey to separate yourself from uh, certain character situations that, whether intentionally or unintentionally, are hurting you, and it doesn't matter if that person is a close relative. So I think that's a strong choice you made, and it sounds like it's the right choice as well. I got another question, but um, I do apologize. This is because I don't really know much about. You mentioned the borderline personality disorder. How does that? Are you able to elaborate on how that manifests within you? You're obviously aware of
so
it.
yes. So there is as I mentioned earlier, there's almost no understanding of it. And for many decades, if not over a century, borderline personality disorder was used as a miscellaneous column by psychologists and psychiatrists. So if a psychologist or psychiatrist, sorry, was seeing someone and they couldn't figure out which category to put them in, they would just say, "Oh, the person has borderline." Or if somebody was calm and able to speak with a psychiatrist or a therapist or whoever, and then at different times they would have reactions, emotional reactions, or they would get angry, or they would get triggered, or they would cry, or whatever else. They were considered to be on the border line of schizophrenia because they didn't have control over their own emotions and their own self. And so borderline personality disorder became I almost want to call it a way out for professionals, so they didn't have to look like they had failed, or that they didn't know what they were doing, or that they weren't able to properly diagnose and support someone. They said, you know what, the person's not really fitting anything, so we're just going to call them borderline. As things have developed, and this has been in the probably the last 10, 15 years now, a stronger understanding of borderline personality disorder has come out. But the issue is that it's still being attributed to pathology. So it's still being said that it's because it's, chemical imbalance or this or that or the other. But the reality of it is that there's a theory called Erickson's stages of development. And what that does is that it looks at, I think there's 8 of them. And the first 6 are from birth to about the age of the first 7 are from birth to about the age of 16, 17. And the first 5 years, especially, are extremely important because those stages of development are where an individual either learns trust or mistrust. They learn emotional safety or emotional unsafety, and all these different things. And between the ages of birth and about the ages of 5, the majority of that is from what's happening in the home. Is it a nurturing, loving home? Or is that child being emotionally neglected? Is that child being abused? Is that child being treated with the proper care? And there is a huge, or there was a huge movement back in the 90s about the whole tough love, this and that. My job as a parent is to give you food, put clothes on your back, and then when you're 18, get out and don't come back. And there were so many, countless programs that were showing, kids who weren't behaving according to a textbook definition of a good child, being put through boot camps, being put through all these different things where they were traumatized um, horribly. And I have no doubt that a lot of the challenges we have today are a result of that. But looking back on things, when we look at the stages of development, if a child, you know what, I'm not even going to look at it as a child. The theories that I'm working on are that the chemical imbalances that happen in a person's brain are a result of how survival strategies are developed. So if I look at my case, for instance, my survival strategy had to do with flying under the radar at all times. I mean, if I looked on the wrong way, you're beating. And developing my survival strategies between when I can remember, I guess around the age of 5, up until when I finally had enough and I fled home at 17. It was about mistrust, all these different things. And in order for me to survive, I had to be withdrawn. I had to be quiet. I had to be agreeable. So I had to do whatever I was asked or told. No questions asked. And because of the various forms of abuse and trauma that I experienced, I had higher rates of certain chemicals, which are to numb the senses, reduce feeling, withdraw from any potential source of danger, regardless whether it's real or perceived, and so on and so on and so on. So when I was a child, if I had been examined under one of those fancy brain things, you would probably see a lot of things that were very similar to someone who maybe has schizophrenia or has autism or has whatever else, because for my body to survive, I had to have certain elevated levels of chemicals that would fuel my flight responses, that would fuel my ability to turn off feelings of pain. Because as a child, there were situations where I couldn't fight, but I also couldn't run away. And so I was forced to sit there and just take it. And the only way my body knew how to adjust to that was to shut off the feelings. And so the only way the brain knows how to do that is by manipulating the levels of chemicals that will impact how nerves respond to things or how memory stores stuff and things of those sorts. Now, there's a lot of research and a lot of things that show things like the hippocampus and the amygdala, which are parts of the brain that are specific to things like memory or dealing with pain and stuff like that. And there are correlations where in certain individuals, these can be enlarged or they can be shrunk. And that also makes sense because if someone spent 20 years dealing with pain,
Somebody
then,
got a phone or something near the computer because it's echoing back. I can't hear you very well.
oh, I'm sorry,
Someone got a
then it
phone
would
or
make
something near
sense.
a laptop because it keeps on echoing back.
Mm. Mine is turned off.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's that. Thank you.
Okay. Because if a person spends, if the only thing a person knows is pain, then it makes sense that the part of the brain that's responsible for turning off pain would be bigger, right? But that's survival strategy kind of. And so exploring those kinds of things really helped me to not only understand myself and feel my recovery journey, but also support others. And not that I would tell them that their amygdala is bigger or that they have chemicals or whatever, but I would explain to them. I said, my own experiences is that this is what happened because of certain levels of emotional pain, and I was trying to survive it. And this is how I evolved my survival network to do so. And as soon as I talked to someone about that and said, whatever you need, let me know, and we can talk about it. And it would open up the conversation, and um, the amount of individuals that have also experienced a recovery journey and better quality of life based upon how I approach them through my understanding of it has increased quite a lot. So it's not just the ideas, but seeing the results and seeing the benefits of it. Um, that has led me to where I am today. Yeah. I'm not
Good
sure
on
if I
you.
answered your question.
Can
Yes,
I
yes.
ask you
Oh,
something? Sorry. Can I just ask, just say something as well? Thank you so much for sharing. But it's very powerful. Again, another powerful talk. But one of the things which really kind of like spoke to me was the fact that, you're saying about the being in hospital and the
mhm.
fact that, the water system, the food, and that control over the staff, the control the staff have over that. So it just, you're speaking here. I've been in hospital, sectioned in hospital, exactly the same behaviour.
Mhm.
It's like this power dynamic, and we're kind of like some kind of we have to be succumb to them. So if it's time to eat, we have to eat when they want us to eat. If we need to sleep, sleep when we want us to sleep. Even if we can't sleep, there's no excuse. And if you can't sleep, they give you extra medication, which in some ways that shouldn't be. And then this
Absolutely right.
dreadful, dreadful injection. Have you heard of it? which knocks you out for days. If you kind of like say, for example, some like you were saying about being in hospital, and sometimes you just felt hungry, but you
Mm,
couldn't eat in between. There was no choice of eating in between or drinking in between those times. And it was
that's
like,
right.
people, we did kind of like hide food so we could have that jar, because also the tablets made you hungry. But it
That's
was,
right.
if they found
Yeah,
us with that, it was another form of punishment. It was another form of
that's right.
abuse. And this is the services. It's so,
That's right.
you're miles away, and you think, as you're saying that, it really moved me, because it's exactly the same pattern here.
You know what the saddest part about all this is? Um, and I'm extrapolating and making educated observations based upon my own experiences on both sides of the
Mhm.
equation, both as a visitor, client, patient, and also as an employee, volunteer of those sorts. Um, Oftentimes, I'm trying to be very careful not to give the wrong like percentages or information here, but oftentimes the result of these kinds of dehumanizing uh, policies, effects, behaviors, and things of those sorts is because of um, the person at the very, very top saying, this is the budget. You're not allowed to exceed this budget. I don't care how you do it, but you have to stay within this budget. If you have to starve someone to stay within that budget, you starve them. And the saddest part of all this is that those budgets are not set around organizational needs. They're set around those individuals' personal needs. I had a guy in construction who the only reason he cut corners and treated people like garbage is because he wanted to go to Cuba once a month. I had a guy in healthcare who, you know, cut back, don't feed them more than this many times a day because we're going to save 50 cents a patient, and that'll add up to how many millions of dollars, and I want to buy my cottage. Or and this is what it comes down to. But when these things are reported, when they're discussed, when they're um, found out to be true, uh, it all gets swept under the rug because somebody that has money is giving money to someone else to make it disappear, and that is where the problem lies, um, and that's what has to be tackled. Which is why individuals who know about this say that no, the system's not broken at all.
Yeah.
It's working exactly as it's intended to work, so that the individuals who are at the very top who want to live their life of perfection are doing so um, by destroying lives at the very bottom. And
And
that's it.
I was looking also, because I'm in a situation where I need support, and and it's a set from, I'm a lot older than both of you, but it's the same situation as I was a child. The
Mm,
gaslighting, the blame, and putting labels upon you because you're asking for not an unreasonable support package, but it's just like, and it's there. And then I looked and I just thought, I'm just going to see. And the director of this company, how much he earns from 178,000 per annum. And that's not also the little bonuses as well. And then you've got the people who work in under him are working for 35,000. And then you've got people who are doing the most work, working for 24. And you just
Yeah,
think, my goodness. And now those are the people who are working for 35 and 24 are the runarounds trying to get everything on target and making it so they can achieve to put bread and butter on their table.
yeah, yeah.
It's wrong, isn't it?
Absolutely correct. Yeah. And this is where the problem lies. The system is working exactly as it was intended to work.
Mm.
And it's for the benefit of the few at the cost of the many. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Uh, any other questions? Did anybody else have any questions?
Mm. Yeah, I want to ask another one is how did you going through the abuse and everything like that, how did you feel knowing every day that you'd go home and you possibly would receive harshness
Mm.
from your mum? Did you, was it a point, I know you said you love and hate her, but did you come to the point that you absolutely deeply hated her at one time?
Oh, yes. Um, it's the hardest part of it, especially being a young child, is that um, as a human being, we are all born into this world with absolutely no knowledge, no experience, no understanding of anything. And then we just pick up from there and we develop and grow based upon our experiences, our feelings, and how our body tries to survive. Um, and in the late 80s, early 90s, there was a very massive focus on um, child discipline,
Mm.
very massive focus on the tough love, um, and things of those sorts. So, as a child, I didn't know anything else. So for me, that was my normal.
Mm.
And the most challenging aspect of it is that there were some days and some moments where my mother was completely great and I was happy. And then there were other moments where she just turned into a monster.
Mm. Mm.
And as a child, I had no clue what was going on, what was making her be good or bad. But I would develop patterns. So, if I did A, this would happen. If I did B, this would happen.
Mm.
And that's kind of how children develop um, behaviors, survival instincts, and all these kinds of things as they grow up.
Mm. You
Um,
watch, don't you? You mirror every bit of
oh,
their behavior.
absolutely.
You kind of like
Yes.
you not mirror, but you watch every bit of their
Yeah.
behavior. You're on alert 24/7.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
mm,
I remember my mother could look at me from the corner of her eye and I would just freeze and I'd be like, did this, did that, did the other, what's going on? What didn't I do? Um, and it wasn't until I was maybe 11 when I began to seriously question that something really is wrong. And by that time, I had already begun having suicidal ideations. And the reason I began questioning it is that at the age of 11, I guess I was in grade 6, grade 7, can't remember. It was in the secondary school, but there was a girl in my class that I really liked, and I wrote her a note about how I wanted to touch her and kiss her and blah 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 blah. Um, and she was uncomfortable and told a teacher about it, and I was labeled as a sexual harasser at the age of 11, not knowing anything about what it even means. And so the teacher told my mom that I was actually harassing a girl in class, no context whatsoever. And what I remember from that day is that something snapped in me because the beating I got from her that day, I ended up hiding under my desk. And my stepfather came in to check on me afterwards. And I remember I thought it was her coming back to finish the job. And I tried jumping out my second floor bedroom window. And that's when I knew something was really off. And things of those sorts, that's, I believe, when I started to hate her, truly hate her. And once I left home at the age of 17, I never looked back. It came at a very steep price, but it was worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was worth it. And after that, I would still have the mental conditioning in place with that old song and dance on repeat, where she's your mother, you have to love her, you have to honor her, you have to. So I would go back and see her maybe every 6 years. And after being near her for about 2 days, I'd be like, right, this is why I didn't come back for 6 years. And then 6 more years would go by. And that was just over and over again. Until I finally decided to cut that thread and turn that old song and dance recorder off. So yeah, it's the interesting thing happened is that I don't hate her anymore.
Mhm.
I stopped hating her. There's an element where I do love her for the fact that she gave me life, but that's where it ends. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
nothing beyond that.
You know when you kind of like it's like there's a process, isn't it? It's like you go through a stage of grieving for what
Yes,
you didn't have, and that
yes.
builds up the anger. And then that once you kind of like move away from that situation, you kind of like have what do you call it?
So
Hindsight, is it?
hindsight, in a sense, stigmatization
Uh,
um, is the greatest
it's massive, isn't it?
enemy of healing and recovery.
Absolutely massive.
Um, the way I look at it is that if I look at my healing recovery
Mm,
as a gigantic onion, the size of like a city, Um, one layer comes off, and you have to deal with that raw, painful stuff,
Mm.
and you deal with it. And then the raw, painful stuff is done, and you're on that next layer, and you can choose to be on that next layer as long as you want until you're ready to break that next layer and deal with the next layer of it. The challenge with stigmatization is that it's like someone coming along and just adding a few more layers onto that onto that onion and saying, no, you know what, it's not enough that you experienced all these things and you went through all these things.
And
I
actually
think you're lying. I think you're attention seeking. So here's a few more layers that you have to question yourself and you have to doubt yourself about, um, you know, but I have to question and doubt myself about whether it was actually my fault that I was being treated that way, as opposed to being able to take a time to actually heal through it and deal with it. So that's probably the most challenging aspect of it.
I've learned myself, and I can relate to what you're saying, Lucas, is um, when you say you don't hate your mother any longer as such, um, because when we understand that whoever hurts us, that person, and I'm not trying to um, defend anyone here, but the person who hurts us has also been born into this world naked without
Mm,
knowing anything. And of course, through external influences, conditioned circumstances, environments, that person develops, grows up, being conditioned in a certain way. And then if that person is not being made aware of that that person is going down the wrong path, so to speak, then that person will, of course, like in your case, in your mother's case, take it out on other people, like how your mother was taking it out on you, unfortunately.
mm, yeah,
Ultimately, I've learned that there's nothing to forgive. And of course, that sounds mm, uh, sometimes hard to take on board.
mm,
But it's a bit like when Jesus hung on the cross and he said to the Father, God, uh, please forgive them. They didn't know any better, or something along those
or
those,
they know
those
not what they
lines.
do.
they don't
Yeah,
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
they don't know what they're doing.
Mm,
I
yeah,
think that was what he said.
mm,
They do not know what they do. It, and of course, perhaps that's the same with the people who hurt us. They do not know what they do. They're being conditioned as well. Um, but that doesn't mean that what they do isn't wrong. Of course it is, and it should be punished
mm,
accordingly. Absolutely, because only then can we develop as a species. But the forgiving, ultimately, I think that there isn't anything to forgive, because the person who hurts us has been, of course, to a large extent, being shaped through society as well.
yeah, yeah. I
how
think
do
you
you
hit the
know what
nail.
is right or wrong? So at the end of the, I get what you're saying. I really do. And, I've forgiven my abusers, but, I don't think I forgive them because I don't want to carry that hate and
Yeah.
discomfort
Mm,
towards them. But there still has to be this line where what is wrong, and
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah,
and people need to be accountable. If you've gone through such horrific pain, and I know that, some people are saying, well, that person's gone through pain again. Why put it onto someone else? To me,
exactly.
that doesn't make sense, because you know the pain yourself. Why put it onto someone
Yeah.
else? And
Yeah.
that's why I can't get my head around, you know.
And I think
Yeah.
it's hitting the nail right on the head right now, discussing the forgiveness part of it. And for myself, what I realized is that whether or not I forgive someone else is not going to impact me in that setting. But what I had to end up doing is forgiving myself
Mm.
for the fact that there was so much shame, so much doubt for so long about why wasn't I strong enough to deal with this, or why didn't I do something about it, or things of those sorts. And once I forgave, um, it was like letting it go, meaning that the experience, the knowledge, the wisdom, the
Mm.
lesson is there, but it's no longer going to affect my ability to um, make decisions. It's no longer going to be affect. It's no longer going to affect my ability to doubt myself or question myself or things of those sorts. Um, and I think that's one of the most powerful parts of the healing journey
Because you're
for
taking
myself.
control.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. Mm. The stigma is painful, isn't it, though? The stigma, I think, for me, it's even now to this present day, if you want to talk about something that happened in your past, like the abuse, oh, it's the past, don't need to talk about that. You know, that's a ugly part of your past. You don't want to talk about that. When someone says that, it's like they're putting upon something so heavy and so painful to someone, because it doesn't matter if it was, you know, a good childhood or a bad childhood, it's still part of your memory bank. And you can't, you know, like you said, Lucas, about forgiving yourself, that doesn't mean the memory has gone. It's about,
Absolutely.
you know, accepting that, you know, it's not our blame. It's not our fault. We don't need to carry that baggage throughout the rest of our lives. But we are able to talk. We are able to speak about it. We are able, you know, we're allowed, and we give ourselves permission to talk about it. And in
Mm.
some ways, abuse is such a taboo subject. You know, the rejection and the kind of like the almost ugly, stifling comments that people make because of it. And I know it's because people feel uncomfortable, but then they have to kind of like sometimes people need to realize that. And I know that's this what I'm going to say is sounding harsh, but it's not meant to be. It's meant to say it because there's so many other people going through abuse, children, things like that. And how can we change it if we keep on pushing it aside? And sometimes you just got to man up because you're not going through it, you're listening to it. And that's the
Mm.
difference. And, you know, yeah, you know, we need to change this, being able to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Mm.
Yeah.
And with the past, it's important to be able to look back and look for references from the past, but without reliving it. That's for me what is the difference. That's of course easier said than done. Don't relive the past, but be able to speak about, as you say, and look for references, as I call it, from the past. But it's an art to do that without actually reliving it.
And sometimes you have to relive it because sometimes in your, you know, in your adult life now, or whether you're a young person dealing with, you know, recovery, well, accepting and then recovering, is that there were times where there's something you haven't quite remembered, and you need to deal with that to move on to the next step
Mm.
of your recovery. So it's going back there, and it means sometimes you are going to be triggered. You are going to be sort of like feeling that pain, but it's that part of that healing, another step to the healing, um, your recovery, sorry.
Mm.
Yes. And the interesting thing is your body, so I've been taught, if you're thinking about the past and reliving it, so to speak, your body doesn't know that it's not happening now. Meaning, so
That's
you
right.
are reliving it mentally, but your
Yes.
body is feeling it as if it's happening now. So the same emotions that you felt back then will resurface in this moment as you are reliving it. So your body can't tell the difference whether it's actually happening now or if it's happening in your memory. For your body, it's always as if it's happening now when you're thinking back. It's quite
Mm.
interesting.
Yeah, that's very true. But there are methods that you can do to kind of like, so the lasting effects of that triggering isn't so profound. So you kind of like it's like when I say sometimes when I feel down, I allow myself for a little while, and then I have to, I say, oh, I'm going to just sit with it for a couple of days. But if I find that it's going over those couple of days, then I have to find ways of pulling myself out of that, and it's at and during those couple of days, it's like I've created, when you put a cake in the oven and it's not quite done, so you put it back in for a little while longer, and then it comes out and it's kind of like it's not perfect, but it's edible. And that's
Mm.
what I find with life, with our traumas. Sometimes when we revisit, yes, we're going to have to go and put it all that stuff and all that pain back in, but when we come out of that, we can deal with it because we've got another, we've taken another step to our healing, which and each step is building us to who we are, not what other people have said who we are,
That's right.
and that's shifting all that stuff from us.
And the other side of that coin is that everybody's different,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
everybody
Yeah.
has a different way of um, coping and dealing with things. And for example, things that have worked for me in my healing journey, um, I can discuss it, but it's an individual's decision whether or not they want to do the same thing.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I think it's very important that individuals know that they have the right to explore what works for them and to choose for themselves without being judged or uh, told they're doing something wrong simply because it's not how somebody else does it. And that's at the root of a large part of where stigmatization comes from.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's
Yeah, you
comparing
mentioned
yes to someone else, isn't it? Sorry, Marcus.
that's right. Yeah, you mentioned there was one key word you used a couple of times. I don't know if you realize it, Lucas. Textbook. You mentioned the word textbook a few times.
mm,
Um, and there isn't a textbook really, as you know, and you know that as well, Jen, that works for everybody. Each case is unique. Uh,
exactly.
uh, there is, of course, a textbook that you can use to look for ideas, signposts, but that don't necessarily point in the right direction for you. So you can't use the same textbook for every single person. And that's why it's so important to be allowed to think outside the box sometimes and explore for yourself as well, as Lucas just mentioned. Um, use textbooks, of course, but also realize if it's not for you, at least then you know, okay, that textbook wasn't for me. Maybe there's another textbook. Explore. And
But
yeah, I think that's
when
important.
do we know, sort of like, that's kind of like, because so sometimes, and this again, it is not for everybody, this is just my experience. Sometimes I'm so fearful of this textbook scenario until I'm kind of like I've dealt with an issue, and then I can look at the textbook scenario and get some more advice. But for me, that in my mind, that's another situation that is diagnosing me or could possibly label me. And that's
Exactly. I think I'm going to refer to Albert Einstein here, with one of his quotes, and then I want to elaborate a little bit on it.
mm,
Albert Einstein's quote, or one of his famous quotes, is that education is not about the learning of facts, but training the mind to think. And textbooks do serve a purpose,
mm,
um, where it's a beginning point, um, meaning that somebody who wants to be, let's say, a therapist, a psychologist, a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, whatever they want to be. The textbook would be the bare minimum, the the basic foundation to build off of for whatever profession or whatever else it is. But once the textbook is used, there's so much more that applies to that. One of the important things to understand about textbook definitions is that science is not absolute, meaning that when studies and theories are made, when there's ideas that are posted, what happens is that um, things are rigorously tested, analyzed, retested, reanalyzed. And in the past, what would happen is that there was a threshold that was somewhere around 70% or 75%, meaning that if they were to, let's say, talk to 100 people and they could get 75 of them to agree on something, they would call that a fact. And the other 25 were expected to adopt what the other 75 thought in order to be considered normal. And that's how things progressed, especially in psychology. Um, the other challenge with psychology is that there are multiple theorized diagnoses that can all have very similar uh, definitions, very similar observations, very similar factors, meaning that if somebody that is behaving in a way that they could be considered depressed goes to one doctor, they can get one diagnosis. If that same person acting the same way goes to a different doctor, they can be diagnosed a different way.
Mm.
And I think it's so important to remember that when a diagnosis is given or when a decision is made by a professional, um, that level of professionalism is based upon being taught how to make the best educated decision based on the facts. And that it's not guaranteed to be correct 100% of the time.
Mm.
And when it comes to dealing with psychiatry, there's a lot of situations where, because the system is so strained and because of the large number of individuals seeking support, it's just, okay, well, you're sad here, take this pill, go. Without actually identifying the actual root cause of the problem. And that's what it means to try to assign a textbook definition. That the textbook says if you're sad, take this pill, you'll
It's
be
the
happy.
happy pill.
See you later.
Mm.
As opposed to understanding that, well, no, he's sad because he burned his finger, but you didn't take a time to actually look at that. So instead of treating a burn, you're just giving them a pill for something that isn't actually there, kind of idea. That's a very generalized way of looking at it, but essentially it explains it. Um, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that sums it up really nicely, Lucas. You explained that really well.
Mm.
Thank you.
It was very easy to follow what you explained as well. And I think there were some really powerful messages within what you described and presented. Yeah,
Definitely.
fruitful thoughts.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So what can I ask you, Lucas, as well? What kind of like, when did you come to the point that you knew that your life was useful for others?
So my very first attempt at ending my life was when I was 18. And after that, um, a lot of stuff happened. But I remember, I guess I was about 19. Yeah, 19. And I was walking with a friend down to a Kentucky Fried Chicken in the middle of winter to get some food. And it was almost blizzard-like. It was very cold. And we went into the KFC and I saw this person there, and he was missing one arm, um, and he looked frozen and just done. Um, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw that what I saw was basically today is the last day here. Like I'm done after today. Um, and I ended up going with my friend to buy some food, and I bought this gentleman a meal and a drink, and I gave it to him. And he came back from wherever he was because he was off in his own thoughts. And when he realized that I was giving him stuff, he just collapsed on me and started crying. Um, and what I felt in that moment, that connection, that I gave somebody hope by simply giving them a piece of chicken. Um, okay, this is what I want to do. What ended up happening is that I completely forgot about this individual. And then come spring, I saw that person in front of a business pushing a broom. He had gotten a job. So, I mean, it's one little act completely changed everything. Um, yeah, that's probably what I do. Yeah.
Can I direct that question to you, Marcus, as well? That's brilliant.
Yeah, just a tiny little trivial thing can change the life in another person tremendously. Just holding a door open for somebody, smiling at somebody, a stranger on the tube, for example, and in the example that you gave us just then, you gave that person, you said hope, which is true, but you also gave that person attention. You notice that person, whereas perhaps most others would just walk past that person. But you actually gave that person attention, and I believe through that attention that you gave that person with one arm, you you gave that person hope, as you said, and there are so many moments throughout everyone's daily life where we got an opportunity to open the door for someone through a smile, letting somebody pass, um, not interrupting someone when that person talks to you, allow yourself to listen to somebody's story. All of those small, trivial seeming moments are just potentials to, yeah, to wake up some hope and encouragement in another person.
Mm, 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 mm. Have you
Yeah, no, well,
experienced something like that, Marcus?
yes, I suppose I have. Um, you see people all around you in a who are potentially in a worse situation than yourself. But I also think we have to be careful not to let our own happiness depend on others' lives being worse off than your own. Um, if that makes sense, because often we hear people say, "Oh, I had a really bad day," but compared to that fellow over there, I'm actually better off. I don't think that's true altruism either, comparing one's pain with somebody else's pain. Um, uh, True altruism as a true compassion, true ability to help somebody else comes from a point of not comparing. But
That's right.
of course, having one's eyes opened is very important. Of course,
Mm,
we're all in the need of uh, each other's help, being there for each other. That's just the way human society should work. Unfortunately, it doesn't always. Um, Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with that. And do you know, reason I asked that question is because, like we were saying about all of us here, well, all three of us, we've not, but we've all gone through obstacles in our life that were quite horrific,
Mm.
and yet we've chosen to care about people. And this is where I'd like to kind of like say, even though we're all different and we cope with things differently, we all have a choice on how we react to other people. And, if somebody's being abused, they don't always go on to abuse again. And this is
That's
that
right.
we have choices in life, and we have choices to give back or to, do the opposite of what has happened to us. So that's really why I asked.
Yeah. Yeah, we all have a choice, and but it's also, I believe, a fact that most people don't realize that they have a choice. And as you say, no matter what kind of horrific stuff you went through as a child, as you said, and it doesn't mean that you didn't, when you get older, commit similar acts. Of course not. We all got a choice, but we have to be made aware, or I think sometimes we have to be made aware that we have that choice. We are allowed to make our own decisions, and we've got a moral duty to make sure that we don't hurt others.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And kind of like I as well, it's a thing saying that, wealth can cause abuse. Again, it's not labeling everybody who's got wealth or anything like that. There's a power dynamic. And some of those people haven't even experienced abuse. But what they
Mm.
do is they will drip the abuse down the line, like Lucas was saying about that controlling what the people who are under them are doing, like in the services and things like that. Cut back, cut back, cut back. No, don't give them that, don't give them that, it's cheaper, blah, blah, blah. That is another form of abuse without, majority of them haven't been abused. Abuse comes in so many different packages, and it's kind of like highlighting that we there's no reason, there's no excuse to be like that to another human being, regardless,
No,
regardless.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
definitely not. No, 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 I agree.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yes, the healing process is never a straight line.
No,
Um,
no.
but but I've, but it
I'll give you a
certainly
pill.
but
So,
but it helps for me at least. It has helped knowing that we are not alone.
mm,
Or no
That's
matter
right.
what you go through, we mustn't compare, of course,
mm,
ourselves with others. We mustn't compare our stories with that of others. But at the end of the day, we are all in the same boat, and we
mm.
should be there for each other.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Agree 100%.
yeah. I've just made you two something else. I was sat here, so you get on the right path. Now, you see, I don't know if you can see them. Whoops, let me go.
You spoons.
So that's Lucas. Yes. And this is you, Marcus. Hi,
It
Marcus.
it looks much better than my passport photo.
Does it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Love it.
As you do. Uh, uh,
Mhm.
and we can laugh. And that's so important as well, to have laughter, regardless of, again, what we're going through. It's funny because that's one thing me and my son used to always do. Doesn't matter what we went through, would always find a way of laughing. Right. Which like helped us in the time.
Yeah, being a little bit silly and throw a joke and laugh and what have you. When I also mentioned that in the book I'm writing or have written, when I was in Germany, I was in a very bad place with my, not mine, but with the OCD. Excuse me. But we have so many of those small flies flying around the
Mm.
house, those fruit flies, and I
Oh,
think
no.
just one went down my throat.
Oh,
Excuse me.
no.
Um, so yeah, back in Germany, I was in a really bad place mentally. But I had some friends, and every time we got together, sometimes on a daily basis, because we all worked together, we would just be so silly and
Mm.
joke and laugh. And those were moments when I was OCD free. They were almost like moments of a little bit of dry land. And I think without those moments of being completely silly, I wouldn't have pulled through. So laughter is good.
Absolutely agree.
As long as the laughter is not on the expense on other people's suffering, of course.
This is correct. Yes.
Yeah. And that reminds me, I think I mentioned that before. I think you know the character Patch Adams.
Yeah.
Have you a real life character who has, I think he's got two hospitals in the United States, but his aim is to make people feel better through laughter.
Yeah.
And I think I think it has been proven as well that many comedians, they actually do often suffer from depression, but they actually put on this kind of act to escape their suffering. I think that's another side to it that is sometimes worth considering. Sometimes one can feel so miserable because of one's mental suffering that the only way of escaping it is to create a situation of just pure silliness, which can just help relieve one's pain.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Nothing at all. And
Wow.
it helps, it really does. Because again, it's like, I think you touched on it, Lucas, about, the different chemicals in our bodies. And we need that balance, and laughter brings a lot of was endorphins and everything. So laughter in brings endorphins and builds some of the damaged brain matter, and so does art and being creative, music and things like that. That also builds more of the endorphin and the some of your damaged matter in your brain.
Mm. Yeah.
Definitely.
Mm. Okay.
Very good.
I am going to
Yes.
need to head out soon,
Okay.
probably in the next 10, 20 minutes, maybe 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for sharing, Lucas. It was very, very, again, another insightful podcast. And yeah, thank you so much for being so raw and honest and
Thank
allowing us to ask questions.
Yeah.
you. My pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you, Lucas. That was good. That was really, really inspiring.
Mm. Yeah. Should we just do some breathing exercises just to kind of like bring us back into, well,
Oh, we
where
can.
we
Right? Sure.
in the kitchen. Yeah. Yeah. Who wants to lead start us off in some breathing? Cam.
Not sure.
The bridge, we can start with that bridge and a reflection. Okay. And just kind of like, just see yourself just laying under that bridge in nice, calm, still water. And you're just slowly breathing. So breathe in, hold 1, 2, 3, and slowly let out 1, 2, 3. again. All times. And shake your hands. Just get those fingers moving and wriggling around. You know, like you're squeezing a ball. Just shake them and wriggle those fingers. Marcus, Lucas, where's your fingers?
Right here.
Telling you off. Those fingers up and see them.
The breathing exercises are just wonderful to bring you back into the present moment, and sometimes at night time, especially if it happens, I'm a better sleeper now than I was, but if it happens that I wake up in the middle of the night and I worry about something, then what helps me is just pay attention to my breathing. And often all I do is I just pay attention to it without interfering with it. I just let the breathing happen. Sometimes when you start to pay attention to your breathing, you actually start to breathe yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you don't really have to breathe. You breathe normally. And sure, you can interfere with your breathing. You can breathe deeper. You can sometimes hold your breath for a few seconds, but just allow your breathing and notice your breathing. And that helps me sometimes just to bring me back into the present moment, because when I do worry, then that worry is something that is not happening in this moment. I'm worrying about something that might happen in the future. And so it's all about, for me at least, to bring myself back into the present moment.
Yeah. Mm. Thank you for that, Marcus. That's good thought, yeah. So it's like we're sitting under the bridge, isn't it? We're all under that bridge behind us. Yeah. Mm. Nice to walk across it. Yeah, so what happens now? So the next podcast will be mine. Bless you. And when do we want to do the podcast? Bearing in mind you're moving next week, Lucas.
Next Saturday, I'm moving.
Yeah. Can we do Monday?
Monday, I'm not available.
Sweet.
My availabilities for this coming week are Wednesday
Wednesday.
and Sunday.
Wednesday. Sorry, what day, sorry? Did you say Wednesday?
Wednesday is good for me. I can't do this Monday either.
No.
We're taking our daughter out, but I can do Wednesday as well.
Yeah, should we say Wednesday? Okay. Wednesday.
Can we do 5 o'clock again? Is that possible?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah. Wednesday at 5 p.m. We'll do. Do you, that's another thing, after this podcast, do you want to, because I think the podcasts are really good and we're just talking about everything and everything. And I think as we split the podcast into sections, because I don't know how much room it will take up on the website. But we can put the whole thing on if we're comfortable with it on sort of like platforms and that. I think we could do that as soon as possible. What do you think?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll do that. So I was going to say, after we've done ours, can we invite Sam Horton to do one with us?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, would like her to do the next one with us. And then we'll start inviting some of the speakers to come in one by one to do some and what they're.
Good idea. Yeah.
Okay. I think that sounds brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still setting up the Eventbrite in between. So I do need dates from you, which is going to send me over because I forget the time I get off here. Send me over some dates via email, and then I can set up a proper date. I know you were saying weekends, weren't you, Lucas, for your college?
Yes.
Yeah. What we could do as well, which may work, we can pre-record a workshop and then put it on Eventbrite. And every time someone watches it, they buy it, sort of thing. So you say every time they watch it, it's £25 a watch.
That
That
might work. Yeah.
that might
Yeah.
be the best way, so we don't have to worry about date times and all being, yeah.
That makes
I
sense.
think that would work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just before you all go, so just listening to your podcast and the similarities of our lives. And when we do one together, it'll be just so your food for thought. Please come back with me if you with other ideas. But with it's just kind of like linking that podcast where we all take a subject and then bring it together in what do you call it, in stats and theories and things like that. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and positivity sort of thing. How do we come through this and things like that. So yeah, might be a good idea.
Yeah. We could
Think about it and see what you think.
Yeah.
pick a subject and talk about that for a bit, and then
Say that
the
again.
next, we could pick a subject, like one specific thing, talk about it for a bit, and then the next podcast would be something else. And
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah. I think that's the way to go. So
yeah,
that each podcast or each episode has a designated
theme.
subject
Yeah.
theme. Yeah.
So it'd be what you kind of like saying is, say for example, if we spoke about OCD, it'll be that because subject would be about OCD, but we bring in all our situations of OCD and then kind of like bring it out as a kind of like a workshop with theories and things like that and back in. So we could do a
Yeah.
PowerPoint with it and everything.
Because if it's OCD, like in my case, it's there's so many subcategories, like how I suppressed it, how I managed to go through life without showing it to anyone, depression, suicidal thoughts,
Family
etc. There are
dynamics.
so many subcategories that I can include in different episodes.
Exactly. And I
Excuse
think
me.
with everybody, all three of our stories,
that's it.
there's just so many categories to it that it will, the workshops will go on and on. And I'm still so Tuesday I'm meeting with phone in. She's going to phone me about the accredited workshops. So I've done a few PowerPoints and I'll send those over to you as well to have a look. Which will go with the workshops. If you want to change the wording or put something else, please feel free. It's just kind of like showing you what we will do for the credit and that. So yeah, all right.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
in the meantime, please, I know there's a lot going on for you, Lucas, this week. I'm here for you. Remember that, I don't care if you can like text me and say, yeah, if I can stop and talk, I will, or I'll phone you back later. You're not on your own. Marcus, I know you're trying to sort out this business and it's kind of like, I'm here for you, please remember that. And yeah, and I know you're both there with me as well. So
Definitely we are. Yeah.
so
Sure.
let's not be afraid to utilize that. Yeah. Promise?
Okay.
Okay.
Promise.
See you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Take care.
Take care.